So, good morning today. My name is Shazia Khan. Thank you for attending today's session. And I'm going to firstly go through the unit itself, what we're going to do today. It's Unit 25 and it's Global Business Environment. And you have 4 learning outcomes and then an assignment discussion session. So we're going to go through each one, and I'm going to not go through it too much in detail because we don't have we've only got a limited amount of time, but I'll go through it because due to your work and things. So I'll go through the learning outcomes with you briefly, and then we'll go through the assignment discussion. So you've got a little bit of an idea of what we're doing and how we're doing things in regards to it, okay? So the unit that we're looking at is called Global Business Environment. And this is the unit that we'll be doing on the 4 learning outcomes. So in this unit, we're going to look at like how the globalization of business continues to become smaller, and like developing opportunities, risk for businesses, expanding and understanding global perspective, and bringing in new ideas, solutions, and opening new opportunities for new businesses around. We'll also be looking at exploring like the wider position that some organizations have in the global environment. And you would look at the global environment with the element of the global presence and how it impacts on the environment itself. And you'll be able to understand once you've done this unit is the organization and how they apply a knowledge when it comes to global matters in regards to a business. So the learning outcomes that we'll be doing this for. So by the end of the unit, the student will be able to analyze the key factors which drive globalization. Learning outcome 1. Learning outcome 2 is to determine the strategic complexity associated with operating in a global environment. Learning outcome 3 is to evaluate how operating a global market influences on organization structure, culture, and functions. And learning outcome 3 is to develop a global strategy to support decision making for a given organization. So the essential content that we'll be looking at in learning outcome 1, which is to analyze the key factors which drive globalization. So we'll look at in learning outcome 1, definition of what globalization is, the growth of international business and business activities, the concept and theory of globalization in terms of, cultural issues, economic, political, and social dimensions. We'll also look at the driving factors for globalization, and factors in relation to cost, market, environment, and competition. We look at digital factors such as the digital revolution, social media, computing, and we'll also look at payment methods and transactions. We'll also go in learning outcome 1 is give you examples on global businesses such as, Apple, Tesla, and the impact of these types of innovation on the product and business models. We then we'll go into learning outcome 2, which will look at global strategic complexities, the impact of international trade law, the economic globalization, and the impact, challenges, and opportunities faced by businesses in global economy. We'll also look at the different legislation and regulatory requirements. Why do you think legislation and regulatory requirements are really important, Keith? When we look at any sort of business, why do you think it's so important to, because does every country have the same legislation and regulatory requirements?
No, not all countries are the same.
Yeah, every country has a different one, so their laws are different, their cultures are different as well. So you have to take all that into account when you open a business. Then we'll look at learning outcome 3, which is to evaluate how operating a global market influences on organizational structure, culture, and functions. Here we look at influences on structure, culture, and functions. We look at global market influences on organization in the context of the McKinsey 7S model. We look at the governance of multinational organization and Hofstede's cultural dimensions. We then go on to learning outcome 4, which is to look at developing a global strategy to support decision making for a given organization. We look at influences on decision-making strategy. We look at the global strategy, so definition of strategy, global strategy and benefits. So this is the learning outcomes and assessment criteria, so how you need to match when it comes to doing your assignment, but you could look at that in your own time when it comes to it, okay? And the recommended reading as well. There's some textbooks, websites that you could use for this and some links to help you. So this is a module specification, the unit specification, and this all is available on Moodle for you, okay? I'll just give you a little bit of an overview. Can you see learning outcome 1 now? Keith, can you see learning outcome 1?
I can only say unit
Okay.
25
Let me
global.
open. No, it's okay. I'll open it up for you.
Okay.
So this is learning outcome 1. So just so this is learning outcome 1, Keith, and this is in regards to what we'll be doing in learning outcome 1. So we'll be looking at analyzing the key factors which drive globalization. So I'm because there's quite a lot of slides, so I'm going to go through it quite briefly because we would have normally done this in one session, okay, each unit. But so if you've got any questions, just ask me, okay? So the unit aim is to look at globalization. Why it's so important for any business to, take on expanding and making sure that they, taking on new ideas. And why do you think it's good for a business, Keith, to be successful, to expand? Why do you think it's so important?
In order to keep going.
Sorry.
In order to keep going.
Yes, keep
Keep.
going. Yeah. Do you think it impacts on the business nationally and internationally, how it grows?
Yes,
Yes.
actually yes. It will impact the nation. It will impact it
Yeah.
it will impact it in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. Yeah, especially if they're doing really well. Places like, you have McDonald's and you have Starbucks, they're global, aren't they? They're not in one place, they're all over. So the indicative content, which I looked at with you just a bit ago, globalization, driving factors of globalization, digital factors, and the role of innovation will be what we will be looking at. So when we look at the first key terminology, what is business environment? It's a connection of internal and external factors such as employees, customer needs, and expectations. The word business is outside of the power of the industry, and business environment can be internal and external. And, it's really important that business environment is taken into account when globally looking at expanding. Globalization is the process where businesses and other organizations develop international influence and opposite, on a larger scale, which is on an international scale, and is connecting to other countries. It's spreading the flow of your financial product, your goods, your technology across borders, and it's where you are, advancing and making, but making sure your product is sold there properly, because you've got to take into account all their cultural organization, cultural exchange. You've got to take into account any laws, any border controls. All these need to be taken into account. So what is a global business environment? So global business environment defined as diversified and centralized international market. And it's in different countries, there will be different factors that you've got to take into account, things like political, economic, technological, and cultural, and why do you need to take all these factors into account when you're expanding your business, Keith? Why is it important to take into account all these aspects?
In order to keep track of the business.
Yes, to keep track of the business, but also make sure that, if there are going to be any issues on technology, legal issues, any political issues, you are able to challenge them. So you've watched, you've researched everything. So there's a video there you can watch in your own time. It's on global environment importance and components. So the next one is the growth of international business and business activities. So what is international business? It's all commercial to promote the transfer of any sort of businesses, any services, any sort of goods across the national boundaries. And the growth is in international business is called globalization. And it could look at factors such as technology, labor, because that plays a big part of it. Labor plays a big part of it, because if you are internationally working, you need to have labor there, don't you? You need to have people that's going to run the organization. And the following 6 most prevalent reasons why a company might be able to move: technology, government are becoming more cooperative, infrastructure, foreign countries, they need more infrastructure, consumers, competition, and new markets as well. International business occurs in many different forms. So you have contractual agreements, which allows the use of, transporting foreign firms and products and services across. It's not an easy process, is it, Keith? You need to be able to get, licenses for trading, for franchising. It's not easy to, expand globally. There's a lot of work in it. What do you think, Keith?
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Because in different countries there are different laws that you have to obey.
Yes. Yeah. And also, you've got to cope with their foreign trade. You've got to make sure that, you're able to trade across the countries as well. Different countries have different regulations, different laws in place, and you've got to make sure you're on top of things. So the concept of theory and globalization in terms of cultural, economic, political, and social dimensions. So all theories have there's 8 theories: liberalism, political realism, Marxism, constructivism, postmodernism, feminism, transformationism, and eclecticism. Each one carries different various variations. So the concept and theory of globalization in terms of economic, political, and social dimensions. So when it comes to culture, it's really important that you take into account people's lifestyles, what the culture is in that country, cross-cultural exchanges, things like that. For economic ones, you'd have to take into account their financial markets, any sort of free flow of labor, capital across labors. For the political, again, you've got to take into the growth of the World Health Organization, World Banks, capitalism, anti-globalization, and protests. And then for social, you've got to take into account the media, the civil society, they're the people, they're the change, because it could have an impact on the change in the people, couldn't it? So,
Yes.
you've got to have a, good social presence as well. So the first theory we're looking at is theory of liberalism, which is the process of globalization as market-led extension of modernization. So it's a result of natural human desires for economic welfare and political poverty. And so they are supporters of this theory, but they're also people that feel that this theory won't work for certain issues of globalization. So you've got to take into account uh, people, you've got to take into account services, the economic growth, and political liberty. Then we have the theory of realism, political realism. And, there's like conflicts between certain states. So politically, according to the states, you have to look at a balance of power between them. And also it suggests a dominant state can bring stability to the world. So you need to look at the impact of the theory of realism in regards to political power. Also, globalization has also cultural, ecological, economic, and psychological dimensions to reduce to power, political. So it's the production of your resources. The government powers theorists neglect the importance of these actors in globalization, and they are really involved. So global agencies, macro-regional institutions, and private sectors are involved, the element of globalization. Theory of Marxism. So Marxism is principally concerned with modes of production, social exploitation through unjust distribution, and social simplification through the transcendence of capitalism. So Marxism itself anticipated the growth of globality, that capital by its nature drives beyond every spatial barrier to conquer the whole earth for its market. So according to Marxist, globalization happens because trans-world connectivity enhances opportunities of profit making. So, the fact that, there's lots of elements of profit making in different countries. So, make sure that you're able to, enhance this opportunity if you have it under the Marxist approach. The neo-Marxism, Marxist is dependency and world system theories. Examine capitalism accumulation of a global scale on lies of core and peripheral countries. So, take into account labor unions, take into account the element of culture, gender, race, sex, and more. So you've got to look at different countries when it comes to investigating any sort of exploring these kind of meanings. Are you okay? Is there any questions you need to ask, Keith?
No questions.
Excellent. Theory of constructivism. This has arisen because of the way people mentally construe the social world, sorry, with particular like symbols. It could be languages, that plays a big impact on it. The fact that, we should take into account different people's languages because not everyone will learn that way. And constructivism concentrate on ways that social actors construct their world, both with their own minds and through intersubjective communication with others. They conceive themselves as inhabitants of a particular global world and national class. Religious and other identities respond in part to material conditions, but they are dependent on interrelated subject construction and communication of shared self-understanding. Theory of postmodernism. So some other additional perspectives of globalization highlight the significance of structural power in the construction of identities, norms, and knowledge. So they're grouped in the label of postmodernism, and they are too, as Michael Foucault does strive to understand society in terms of power shape and certain knowledge. So, they're looking at the rationale, looking at the structure of the country, looking at the power is really, really important. You need to make sure that you're in line with everything that's going on in regards to any sort of power, any sort of democratic, bureaucratic, or disciplining kind of desires that are in place. The mode of knowledge has authoritarian and expansionary logic that leads to a kind of a cultural imperialism, subordinating all espidogies, and it does not focus on the problem of globalization. It looks at the world itself. Like Marxism, it helps to go beyond the relatively superficial accounts of liberalist and political realist theories and expose social conditions that have favored globalization. So this impacts on the interconnection between ideational and material forces. Theory of feminism, and this is, as it says, it puts an emphasis on social construction of masculinity and femininity. So all theories have identified the dynamics behind the rise of planetary and super territorial connection in technology, capital, identity, and biological sex is also the overall social order. So this looks at feminist approaches. Theory of transformationalism, and this theory is expounded by David Held and his colleagues. According to him, the term globalization reflects increased interconnectedness in political, economic, and cultural matters across the world, creating a shared social space. And then the next one is hyperglobist, and they argue contemporary globalization defines a new era in which people everywhere are increasing subject to the disciplines of the global market. So this is where the global market is growing, and this is where people feel that they are in that a new era is being introduced. So developing the transformationalist category of globalization, it was held that McGraw present a rather complicated typology of globalization based on globalization spread, depth, speed, and impact, as well as on its infrastructure. these organizational interests combine actors identified in a globalized category, such as like NGOs and MEs, who have, a power to kind of influence things and exercise their political power. The politics of globalization is equivalent to political globalization by McGrew. However, Byron Michael criticized them. He deconstructs their argument and as if defined as globalization, and he also looked at elements of MEs and IGOs in regards to this. Theory of eclecticism. So here is each of the above 6 ideal social theories of globalization highlights certain forces that contribute to its growth. They put emphasis on technology and institutional building, and also they look at national interest and competition and capital accumulation, and look at construction, national rationalism, and cultural imperialism. Their contests can be over or lantern. Surplus accumulation has been transpired in the way of many centuries, but capitalism is comparatively recent phenomena, and it looks at the structural power and as a natural circumstances and no other alternative mode of production. I think we missed that one. So in the area of knowledge, the way that people have significant implications, powerful patterns of social, economic can cause globalization. So when we look at these theories, why is it so important to bear in mind that there's impacts of social, economic, technological, cultural issues? Why do you think it's so important, Keith? Do these theories apply to different concepts?
I think so.
Yeah. Do people rely on
Yeah.
different theories? Different people rely on different theories, and what theories work for them, they use them. Rationalism is instrumentalism. It assigns greatest value to insights that enable people efficiency to solve immediate problems. So the concept and theory of globalization in terms of cultural, economic, political, and social dimension. So Manfred Steger, professor of global studies at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, argues that globalization has 4 main dimensions, which are economic, political, cultural, ecological, with ideological aspects of each category. And he looked at the circle of sustainability, where it looked at economic, political, military, cultural, and ecological. So the first one is economic globalization, and this is the intensification and stretching of economic interrelations around the globe. It encompasses such things as the emergence of new global order and the enhanced role of international economic institutions. Political globalization is the expansion of political interrelations around the globe. Is it really important to have this political globalization in today's world?
Political globalization.
Sorry?
You're asking that it's important to have.
Yeah.
Is it good to have political?
Is it important to have political globalization in today's changing world?
Uh,
Because
Probably.
you have to have a relationship with the political,
Sorry.
globalization. Sorry, what's that, Keith?
Also, you're kind of breaking a bit.
Yeah. So, in this today's world, we have political globalization in today's changing world. Is it changing all the time that we really need to have political, globalization? Do you think
Sometimes.
the world is changing quite quick?
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
it is. Yeah. There's changes in the world that you wouldn't expect to change so quick, but an example is the use of AI. That's taken over the world. Military globalization, and this is an article on there that you could do right click and go on there. It's defined as the intensification of stretching of military powers across the globe through various military powers. So it could be things like, military weapons, radiation weapons, and this is defensive use of power and survival in the international market. So you need to have a good military in place and good military power. Cultural globalization is a very broad concept and has many facets, but in discussion, it refers to symbolic construction, articulation, and dissemination of meaning. So it could be discussion around a global culture, the role of media in shaping identities and desires, and the globalization of languages. Now, because that plays a big part in any sort of globalization. If you want to open your business or anything, it plays a huge part. Culturally, they need to have be able to take into form the identities and desires of everyone. Ecological and topics include things like the access to food, worldwide reduction, the gap between the rich and poor, so looking at, elements of that in the global world, and environmental issues as well. Driving factors of globalization. What do you think are some of the driving factors of globalization, Keith? What do you think?
Driving factors of globalization.
Yeah, what do you think some of the factors are? I mean, we've got things there in them
Exchange of
diagrams.
currencies.
Yes. Trade, uh,
Yeah.
labor, it could be, the investment routes, expansion of financial capital flows, foreign direct, rising number of global brands, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Google, Amazon, increasing levels of international migration, and increased connectivity of people with businesses and, Wi-Fi and internet. So containerization is the cost of shipping, due to bulk shipping and the lower cost of products to help bring prices down for manufacturing. You've got technological change. Technology is changing all the time, we're transmitting, communicating different ways. The use of AI is coming. So, the web technology is changing all the time. Economies of scale. So many economists believe that there's been an increase in minimum efficient scale, MES, associated with industry, so domestic markets. So, the economies of scale have played a big role in it. Differences in tax system. Now, different countries have different tax system, and many countries have their own tax competition between each other. So, if it's lucrative for you, you should invest in that country. Less protectionism, so all forms of non-tariff protection, such as import licensing. Borders have open average import tariffs. So, there are changes in the tariff system as well, and tariff barriers for certain countries. Growing strategies of transnational and multinational companies. So this is things like a company is growing, it's investing, its brand is growing. So it makes sure that it will, expand globally and make sure that it will make more of a profit if they go globally. Digital factors. So the digital factors are things like, computing power, Internet of Things, 5G networks, social media, it's making products available to everyone globally now, Do you think the digital factors play a big role in globalization?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Huge
People
impact.
buy on the internet, don't they now, Keith? They don't have
Yes,
to
yes,
go outside and buy, you know.
true, true.
And the global market is getting bigger and bigger, and digitalization is a huge part of it. You've got things like, buying online, you've got 5G, you've got cloud computing, the data's online, everything seems to be online, so it's more digitalized. International support systems, so payment methods and transactions and the internet. And so, do you think this is a big increase in this as well, how you pay for things
Yes.
online?
Mhm.
So a prepayment is paying somebody or company in advance. You could do that. They introduce different companies, things like, I'll give you an example. In the UK, you have ClearPay, don't you? You have Klarna, so here is where they have a prepayment system where somebody or a company in advance is paying for their goods or services. So, this requires for both companies to have a lot of trust in each other. It's not something that you can, do for one organization to another, because you've got to have trust in that organization. If you don't have trust in that organization, it's really, really difficult to be able to, come together with that organization and do things. So you've got to have this balance of trust with that organization. If you put prepayment payments in by the, importer. Letters of credit, and letters of credit are normally used when for international trade. Is that the bank, this letter of credit is where that the bank of the importer will pay the supplier as soon as the order has been made and the terms and conditions of a letter of credit are met. For example, if a company is ordering chairs from another country, the bank of importer will not pay the chair company unless the bank has seen the documentation of the order. And then the bank will then monitor the agreement of two companies and just transfer the money when they have verified the order. The advantage of this type of finance is that there's low risk for the importer, as the company money will not be sent away without having the documentation. So the disadvantage is that importers' money will not be sent based on the verification of the goods they received, but it's based on the documentation. So the next one is export credits, and this is where a company gives another company goods upfront and allow them to pay back after an agreed period. So if you purchase something from a different country and you're a UK supplier, the UK supplier will give the money after the goods have been received, or may pay back after agreed period. So there's a negotiation between the parties, and the business is can this be unstable, this, having an agreement with other to pay for? Do you think it's one of the disadvantages? Do you think there will be issues around this?
Yes, there must be issues because the person you're sending the goods in credit may not
Yes.
be able to sell the goods that he ordered on time for you to pay him.
Yes. So there can be issues around this. So there's not always advantages of this. There can be disadvantages, and people don't always, like you said, they have a cash flow problem because the money may come in after a long period of time. You haven't got the money there. So that is one of the issues. The role of innovation, so examples of global business success by innovative like Apple, Tesla, Mitsubishi, and Google. So you can see from this chart that shows the top 10 most innovative companies such as Apple, Google, 3M, Toyota, Microsoft, IBM, Samsung, and you can look at this diagram shows the element of revenue growth, and then the EBITDA as revenue and market cap, and the lowest possible scale, and it looks at the top 10 innovators. So there's an article here on how Apple is organized. You can look at that in your own time. If you right click it, it opens it up. Another article and a case study on Tesla, the world's more exciting automobile, and another article on Apple versus Google, top-down versus bottom-up innovation. Then we look at the impact of different types of innovation and globalization, including things, innovation but is a really important part of any driving globalization. Why do you think innovation is so important, Keith?
Keep companies up to date.
Keep companies up to date, yes. Anything else?
Also can help them grow.
Does it bring in changing markets? Does it bring in new opportunities? Yeah. And the different types of innovations on globalization. So the first one they mentioned is product innovation. For example, Fitbit. Process innovation. So, for example, supply chain management, and business model innovation, things like Amazon and eBay. Product innovation, example, Fitbit, the impact is that it's new market creation, it's a new product, it's it's something that's expanding, it's wearable, and it's used for health and fitness. The global consumer trend is that it can set global trends. For example, if it's a new thing that's come in, does everyone want it? Keith,
Sorry?
when a new phone comes in, like iPhone 17, is it that everyone wants it because of social
Not
media and
everybody.
things? Yeah,
And not everybody.
yes. And for example, products like Fitbit gain popularity when they looked at health awareness and data-driven. The stimulate competition is a pioneering product can lead to an influx of competitors. So what will happen is other people will start designing something like Fitbit, like Apple did. Remember, Apple designed an Apple Watch for Fitbit as well. So these
Yes,
things
yes.
would, impact on competition as well. Process of innovation, supply chain management, the impact and the efficiency in global operation is innovations in supply chain management allows any sort of business to optimize, reduce costs, and enhance efficiency. Technologies and like AI, and they monitor the analytics, and then the increase interconnectiveness is modern supply chains span across countries and continents with improved process innovation. Products are often sourced, manufactured, and assembled. And then you have risk distribution. So by diversifying supplies and integrating advanced management techniques, companies can distribute and mitigate risks. So you have the business model innovation. So you have Amazon and eBay. So the disruption of traditional markets, Amazon transformed the retail sector. Do you think Amazon is a big part of the global market?
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so big? Do you think
Because
it's all over the world?
yes, yes, it is no, it can't go. It can deliver anywhere across the world.
Yes. And people, when when you've got Amazon, people want to buy, don't they?
Yes, yes,
Worldwide.
they do.
And it's got everything on it, hasn't it? It's got everything. So whoever set up Amazon is a millionaire by now.
Yes,
They'll be making loads of money because, it's worldwide, it's global, and it's got every product you want to buy on it, and it's accessible to the global consumer.
true.
So it's really good. And another one is eBay. eBay again is a global thing, isn't it?
Yes,
It's
it
in
is.
different countries, and with Amazon and eBay, they offer employability opportunities across the globe for everyone. So it's not just in the UK, it's everywhere. Um, and platforms like eBay allow for products for to sold globally, even if they're locally sold. So, in conclusion, innovation is a driving force behind the accelerated pace of globalization. It's a huge part of globalization, and products come in, new changes, companies come in, they have innovation, changing dynamics, they bring in new things, they have competition in place, so they need to have them elements of it. So P1 is to analyze the factors of cost, market, environment, and competition that drive global commerce and trade. So global commerce and trade are driven by a combination of factors. The first one being cost. So why do you think cost is so important when we look at global innovation, or why do you think costing is so important?
Determine whether the product will be accessible to everybody or just
Yeah.
the people who
Also,
are capable.
yeah, also things like labor cost. What would they look for cheap labor cost in different countries?
Yes, yes.
Yes, like China, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. The example is Primark. A lot of a lot of their global market and the lower cost of labor is from Bangladesh. They sold their clothes. Again, raw materials in different countries are cheaper than in other countries as well. Logistics and transportation, how you can trade, they have such an impact on trade decisions. Tariffs and duties, so high tariffs can deter companies from exporting. So some companies won't export because of the high tariffs. Then you have the market here. So the demand. So if there's a demand for certain products, you're going to want to do it, aren't you? So an example is the rising middle class of Asian countries increase demand for luxury goods and electronics. If a market is already saturated with a particular product, it can be challenging to penetrate. If they've already got a product in place, it may be that you have to look elsewhere for different opportunities. Cultural, social, economic influences, consumer choice. You need to adapt your products and services to consumers. Why is that important? Who's your main target?
The consumer.
consumer. So you need to adapt your product to that local preference. And regulatory environmental countries with transparent and favorable business regulations tend to attract more foreign investments. Environmental, and that's looking at things like, companies, how they source their product, whether it's eco-friendly, whether, it'll affect the product itself. Also, places with natural disasters, for you, wouldn't be good to invest in places where there's natural disaster. Why do you think that's the case, Keith? If there's countries that are not stable and there's conflict in that country or there's a natural disaster, would you want to trade in that country?
No, 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 I
No,
wouldn't want to trade.
because
No.
the investment wouldn't be there, would it really?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be difficult. The next one is competition. So global competitors can influence whether the company decides to enter the market or not. There'll be other competitors. Globally, there'll be other competitors and local competitors. They'll understand the local market, making it for someone to join it, make it quite challenging. So countries or companies that are forefront of technological innovation, they hold a strong chance to do well in the global market with all these technological powers and changes. Barriers to entry, so high barriers to entry, either strong regulatory barriers or companies entering a new market. So the interplay of factors determining the patterns and dynamics of global commerce, they have a big impact on it, economic, technological, social. These impact on any sort of company wanting to go forward in the global market. So the next one is M1, critically analyze the impact that key factors have on global business environment in terms of opportunities and challenges. So the key factors influence commerce and trade are things like cost, market environment, and competition. So the first one we're going to look at is cost, and here's where we look at opportunities. So lower production costs, would that make your profits be improved if you have lower production costs by getting cheap
To
labor, cheap material? Do you think you would make a more of a profit?
yes, you will.
Yeah, you will. So if you try to get cheap labor and raw materials, you could get, more of a improved profit. Challenges, so relying on cheaper production centers might sometimes lead to compromises in quality. So there's a pros and cons of that, isn't there? Keith, if you produce something that's cheap, is it of good quality?
It depends
It depends on what, Keith. You're
on the
right. It
materials
depends.
that you used.
Yes. It depends. So, there could be drawbacks for both, couldn't there? Advantages
Yes,
and disadvantages, yeah. So the next one is market. So access to
yes.
international market provides a more extensive customer base. You'd get a large customer base. You'd have increased sales and revenues. You'd have, it allows companies to spread risks, and compensate. The challenges here is that misunderstanding local customs preferences. Why is it important to understand cultural nuances? Why is it important to, understand local customs and preferences?
It will help you to understand more of your
Yeah. For example,
consumers' needs and wants.
yes. Example I'll give you, McDonald's, Keith, is open in countries that have halal food. Yeah.
Yes,
So what do they need to do to make sure they are meeting their local customs and cultural nuances?
by aligning
Do
to
they
the
need to provide chicken and uh, should it be halal if it's in a halal country?
yes,
If yes, so if you go to Pakistan now, just an example for you, if you have a Burger King or McDonald's there, even if it's a cheeseburger or a chicken burger, it's halal. So anyone
yes.
can eat it. So that's how it's trying to attract its customers and its local market. If you were in another country like the UK, example, the it's not halal. So because it's a British society, it's not a country that expects it. There's not culture of it being halal. The only thing that may be halal is the fish fillet, which is just fish. but the cheeseburgers and chicken burgers are not halal. But so organizations, businesses like McDonald's will open where there's a local market and there's local, customs, and it takes into account culture. Environment, so eco-friendly innovations, things that you could have eco-friendly products, environmental friendly products, and also that brings this reputation of a green reputation quite up. Challenges in that is initial investment in sustainability. It could be high, and changing trade or sanctions will disrupt the supply of change. Next one is competition, and this is a big one because companies will collaborate with different global partners to share any sort of risks, any sort of, technology innovations, how they would move forward. Some of the challenges are that the intense competition can lead to price wars, reduce profitability. You want to sell something, don't you? So you want to make a profit. But if you've got competition, should you reduce your product? You have to, don't you, to make that little bit of profit. In certain markets, intellectual property rights might be strongly enforced, making sure that things are not copyrighted. So while the global business environment offers immense opportunities for expansion and access to the diverse market, there's also challenges. Nothing is quite easy to get through. You must take in people's cultural sensitivity. You must be aware of any sort of risk. You must be aware of any sort of the ability to adapt, innovate, and make sure you are meeting navigating the global landscape. There are risks in everything. So D1, critically evaluate the global business environment, including the opportunities and challenges faced by organizations. And the global business environment is a complex, interconnected web of economic, political, cultural, technological, and environmental factors. As markets become increasingly independent, organizations on an international scale encounter both challenges and opportunities. So some opportunities are access to larger markets. So companies can tap into larger markets and in the world. Cost efficiency, so different regions offer different cost efficiency, different labor, different raw materials. Diversification of risk, by operating in multiple markets, companies can distribute their risk. Innovation and learning, so exposure to various global markets provides insights into diverse consumer needs and preferences. Global supply chains, so companies can optimize their supply chains by sourcing materials and get the cheapest or of a highest quality. There's also challenges in that as well. Cultural and regulatory challenges can result in like financial losses. Why would that be the case, Keith? If you don't take into account each country's cultural nuances, why would cultural and regulatory differences be an impact on your business?
Yes, it will.
Must you take into account?
Yes, you must take into
Sorry?
account. You must take into account.
Yes. Yeah, you must take into account because you can have a financial loss, can't you? And reputational damage. Political economic stability, so you need to look at the upheavals, the regulatory changes. Things like Brexit had an impact on businesses. Increased competition, so there's competition out there. There's lots of markets, local businesses that you may have to compete with, that you need to take that into account. Exchange rate fluctuations, so volatile currency rates can have an impact on your business. Imports and exports. Supply chain complexity, again, the disruptions, if there's any sort of disruptions, and the main one was COVID pandemic, that had a big disruption on businesses. Ethical dilemmas, so looking at business practice, how it's acceptable in one country, it may not be deemed acceptable in another country. So you need to look at that as well. So in conclusion, the global business environment, while promising immense opportunities, is fraught from complexities, and organizations must be adaptable, culturally sensitive, and strategically astute. And moreover, in the face of global challenges such as change and inequalities, companies increasingly expected not to pursue profits, but they have to consider things like social and environmental impacts. So these are the these are the references for learning outcome 1 and some reading that you can do in your own time in learning outcome 1. Have you got any questions around learning outcome 1 before we go on to learning outcome 2?
No question.
Keith? Okay,
No
excellent.
question.
So we'll go on to learning outcome 2 now, Keith. Okay, we'll go on to learning outcome 2, okay?
Okay.
So learning outcome 2 is looking at determining the strategic complexities associated with operating in a global environment. So here we look at elements of global strategic complexity, so the impact of international trade law, challenges and opportunities faced by business in the global economy. We look at key terminology is what is strategic complexity associated with operating in a global environment. Here we look at strategic complexity can be an alternative name for the field of complexity, the degree of complexity in elements of strategy, and the number of elements strategic, competitive strategy, and Porter's 5 forces. What are the 4 basic strategies in global market? And we looked a little bit at them. It was environment, global standardization, localization, and transitional and international. So the World Trade Organization's role is to make sure that it's offering a platform for negotiating trade agreements and a mechanism for dispute resolution. And its aim is to ensure that the trade is conducted fairly and transparently, benefiting both developed and developing countries. So, it's taking on board everything. So in that diagram, in that table, it shows you when it was set up, the purpose of it, where the headquarters are, and why it was set up as well. So Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC. The APEC is a regional economic forum established to leverage the growing independence of Asian Pacific region, and it aims to create greater prosperity and also inclusivity, sustainability, innovation, and secure growth. The diagram there shows you when APEC was established, the headquarters, the memberships, their roles and responsibilities in regards to trade and investment, business facilitation, economic and technical cooperation, sustainability, growth, and structural reform. You can have a look at that in your own time, okay? The next one is Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which is ASEAN, which is a regional intergovernmental organization comprising of 10 Southeast Asian countries, and it's there to promote political and economic cooperation and regional stability between its members. And again, the table there shows when it was established, the headquarters in Indonesia, the members and the official purpose of it, and the roles and responsibilities. The next one, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which is OECD. And this was an intergovernmental economic organization that promotes policies to improve economic and social well-being of people worldwide. And again, the table shows the overview and roles of that, when it was established, where the headquarters are, the roles and responsibilities. There's a video there on General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which you can watch in your own time. It's called GATT. The next one is what is strategic complexity in a global business environment. So strategy can be defined of means by facilitating change and achieving long-term goals. And looking at complexity and a business environment is a global when barriers to trade and across trade borders are removed to enable increase the integration of product, operation process and capital markets and flow of resources, technology, knowledge, labour, culture, and goods and services through the international market. What are international trade laws? So there are international trade laws. Why do you think there's a need to have international trade laws, Keith?
No.
Does it have rules and regulations for certain things?
Yes, it does.
And a country needs to abide by them, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so 3 types of international trade are import, export, and entry port trade are the 3 types. And there are three common barriers to international trade, which are tariffs, quotas, and non-tariff barriers. So number one, the impact of international trade. It's a trade law that governs the way in which countries conduct relations with each other and trade with each other, taking into account treaties, conventions, their domestic law. And, if they work together, it can, run smoothly. If they don't, then there are consequences. Economic growth and development. So by facilitating trade, international law aids in economic growth. Dispute resolution. So international trade law provides mechanism for resolving disputes that arise between countries regarding trade matters, such as the World Trade Organization. Then we have protection of intellectual property, and that is protected through the TRIPS, which is the trade-related aspects of international property rights. Trade laws make sure you're not using the same name, copyright, and things like that. Standardization, so by setting international standards in making trade more predictable, for instance, standardization customs, procedures can make it easier to businesses to export. Environmental labor standards, again, looking at labor costs, trade, economic diversification, diversifying the economies, reducing single export industries, reduction of trade barriers, protectionism and retaliation, and sovereignty concerns and equality concerns. So international trade has both positive and negative impacts on the economy as a whole, and its nuances can lead to a variety of outcomes. So the next one is economics of globalization, the environmental impact of globalization. Here we've looked at economics of globalization. We've looked at efficiency, specialization, income equality, financial market independence. We've looked at environmental impacts of globalization, such as increased carbon footprint, exploitation of natural resources, spread of environmental degradation, and global environmental awareness. Challenges for risk and diversification strategies. So here, interconnected risks, commodity price volatility, regulatory divergence, cultural and social risks, and environmental and social governance and supply chain. So in summary, globalization offers a vast economic opportunities. It also poses challenges, and there's some additional reading you can have a look at there. There's a lot on the slides for you to read later on as well, Keith, okay? So if you need to read it, I just don't want to go over time, so we don't have time to go through your assignment, okay? So are you here till 11:30, Keith?
Yes.
Okay. So the complexity are things like cultural differences. Different countries have different cultures, logistics and transportation, so the transportation infrastructure, regulatory and compliance issues, tariffs, currency fluctuations, economic conditions, which we looked a little bit around in learning outcome as well, and political language barriers, intellectual property, which we've looked at, environmental and ethical concerns, variability in technology, natural disasters, which we looked at in learning outcome 1 as well, and differences in the legal service, which legal systems, which we discussed that each country has different laws. Challenges and opportunities faced by businesses in the global market, and this table shows factors, challenges and opportunities, which you can have a read of in your own time. Challenges and opportunities faced by business in the global market, different legislation and regulatory requirements, and that could be a challenge for certain countries to come into if they're used to their own laws. And then you've got intellectual property, trade barriers, opportunities are there's market access, competitive advantage, collaboration opportunities, and risk management. Operating complexities across different time zones. That's a big thing as well. Businesses working at different time zones. It can be challenging, communication delays. It may be employers are tired, they can't attend meeting, coordination, monitoring 24/7, scheduling meetings, cultural and weekend differences like Dubai, they don't work on certain days. Middle East don't work on a Friday. Some of the opportunities are extended business hours. You can do that. You can follow the sun model, flexibility like remote working, global market access, real-time responses, and diversification of risks. Cultural differences, again, we looked at that, cultural barriers, communication barriers, decision-making, conflicting values and ethics, making sure you're on top of the cultural barriers as well, opportunities, richer perspectives, broader customer appeal, businesses respect cultural and, exposure of different cultures can lead to growth in the market. The monetary environment refers to conditions of dynamics of countries' monetary policy, which is set by the central bank. And these can be things in relation to interest rates, money supply, and credit availability. Opportunities are better from lower interest rates, competitive currency value, hedging opportunities, investment opportunities, stimulated demand, and access to global markets. Political unrest and instability. And they have an impact on the business if there's no, if there's challenges, things like disrupted business operations, threats and assets, decreased opportunities. And opportunities could be market leadership in post-conflict scenarios, niche markets in unstable regions, leverage international support, negotiation leverages, acquisition and investment opportunities, and managing global customer needs and expectation. And that's important because you need to make sure you are managing them and there's challenges in place. Make sure your consumer preferences are widely available, cultural sensitivity, varying levels of income, opportunities, expanding market share, making sure you're tapping into different preferences, diverse product offerings, global brands, leveraging in global market, economies of scale and risk diversification. P2, examine the complexity of strategic challenges faced by organizations when operating in a global environment supported by specific examples. So regulatory and legal environment complexities, cultural and social differences. We had a look at that. Economic disparities, political instability, and global supply chains. Competitive landscape, so technological changes, any sort of new people, local players coming into the market, ethical environmental considerations. M2, evaluate strategic challenges in context of risk and diversification of supply. Strategic challenges is market volatility, operational risks, reputation risks. Strategic challenges in the context of diversification, diluted focus, complex management. Strategic challenges in the context of supply flow. So it could be that the supply is not coming in, sourcing is not properly done. In conclusion, the challenges facing the global market are multifaceted. Some of the references are here. So I've gone through 1 and 2. I'm just going to quickly go through learning outcome 3 with you and learning outcome 4, and then we can go to the assignment discussion because I just don't want us to miss that. So the learning outcome 3 is to evaluate how operating in a global market influences organizations' culture. I'm just going to go through the indicative content and what we've gone through that. So we've looked at influences on market structure, culture, and functions. So we've looked at the various structures in organization. 4 types of organizational structure: functional, divisional, matrix, and flat. And we've gone through the 4 types of functions. So the video will look at corporate culture. We've also looked, you can look at McKinsey's 7 model of organizational structure, which is structure, system, style, staff, skills, and strategy, and the importance of that. So have a look at that in your own time. Okay, there's more on McKinsey's 7 approach. Global market influences on organization on McKinsey's 7S model. And then we looked at the governance and multinational organization leadership in an international context. We looked at governance of a multinational organization. We looked at the leadership in an international context. A lot of these we've covered in learning outcome 1, like vision, ethical, cultural, local globalization. Hofstede's cultural dimensions theory, and looked at, it shows the effects of society culture on the value of its members and how to behave. So I have cultural dimensions in Hofstede's 6 dimensions of culture: power, individualism, masculinity and uncertainty, long-term orientation and indulgence. The use of Hofstede's circle, And then we've looked at the influence of ethical and sustainable globalization. So we've looked at business operations, supply chain management, product development, investment decisions, economic, which is long-term and social impact, environmental impact and consumer behavior, political and regulatory impact. And that is learning outcome 3. And then quickly into learning outcome 4. Learning outcome 4, which is looking at developing a global strategy to support decision making for a given organization. So we're looking at influences on decision making and strategy, the principles of leadership change and the process of internationalism, the impact of barriers to international trade on decision making and strategy, global strategy, definition of global strategy versus international strategy, benefits of global strategy and why it's so important. There was a video there on strategic decision making. You can have a look. Influences on market strategy. So it could be things like business objectives, organizational structure, attitude to risk, availability and the external environment, the principles of leadership and change. Also looking at what is change management, Levin's change management model, unfreeze, change and refreeze, and went through each one so you could have a look at that in your own time. Applying change management model to Nissan Motor Company as a case study. We look at Kotter's 8-step model of change. We've also looked at so these are the 8-stage model of change. Kotter's model, advantages and disadvantages of the process of internationalism, and the impact of barriers to international trade on decision making and strategy, strategic alignment, product and service adaptation, pricing decisions, supply chain adjustments, market diversification, risk management, government relations and lobbying, joint ventures and partnerships, research and development, consumer education. We also looked at the definition of global strategy, several characteristics of that, and looked at strategy versus international strategy, some examples of Apple and McDonald's, and then different types of global strategy in diagrams there. Also international expansion strategies and decision-making strategy in relation to risk and diversification, strategic decision management and balancing the need for global integration versus local responsiveness, and a diagram and balancing the two. And these are the references. So I've quickly gone through all the learning outcomes so you've got a little bit of an idea of what we're doing. This is the assignment brief. This is how it looks, but we're going to go through slides for that. So this is how the assignment brief looks. Okay, can you see that, Keith?
It doesn't yet. Oh, I can see.
Yeah, and this is available on Moodle for you, okay? And it'll go through your introduction, general information, submission, Harvard referencing, plagiarism and collusion, and also it looks at elements of the assignment scenario, okay? So this is available on Moodle for you. It also has the learning outcomes and assessment criteria and how it should be assessed, okay? So now what I'm going to go through is I'm going to go through the slides with you now, okay? So let me just get the slides up for the assignment discussion, and I've just copy and pasted the slides on there, okay? So it's not an element of anything different to the assignment. I've just done it, so I've given you guidance on that. Okay, any questions, please ask, okay?
Okay.
Sorry, it's a little bit rushed, but it's because of your timing and things.
Okay.
So hopefully we've got another half an hour to go through this assignment discussion as well, okay? So this assignment discussion is around what you need to do for the assignment, okay? So your learning outcomes, again, is to analyze the key factors which drive globalization, learning outcome 1. Learning outcome 2, determine the strategic complexities associated with operating in a global environment. Learning outcome 3, to evaluate how operating in a global market influences an organization structure, culture and functions. And learning outcome 4, developing a global strategy to support decision making for a given organization. So the assignment declaration, this is really important because, you have to declare that the assignment you've done is your own assignment, okay? So you need to make sure that when you are doing this assignment is your own work. and you're declaring that you haven't copied, you haven't used the use of AI. There's a 20% threshold if you use any resources that you could have for AI, but above that, you know, the declaration confirms that you've read the plagiarism report, you've read the guidance on plagiarism, the policy, and you've gone through everything in regards to that, and you need to make sure that you are on top of things and not plagiarizing. So this declaration is done for every assignment, and it's available on that link, okay?
Just a minute, I use the washroom. Just give me 1 minute.
Okay, okay.
We can continue.
Okay, you okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So what information needs to go on the assignment? So you need to have your name on there, your registration number, your tutor's name. Word count for this assignment is 1,500 to 2,000 words, but it is a presentation. Date of submission is 2 weeks after this assignment discussion session, and the unit level you need to put on there as well. Plagiarism and collusion. Again, plagiarism as collusion is really, really important in regards to the work needs to be your own work. It needs to be presented in your own thoughts, your own ideas, and not anyone else's. And collusion may occur if you copy someone else's work, which is similar to a fellow student. So, plagiarism is taken very serious, and there's an academic policy that you need to refer to on Moodle to help you identify that if there's any issues around plagiarism. General information is about the VLE that is taught online, and the virtual learning environment that we used for this assignment or for any sort of resources or anything additional reading is a Moodle that you need to refer to. Start of the assignment, you need a table of contents. I think this is a presentation, so maybe just have some contents in there. Font size 12, 1.5 lace spacing. This is in the form of an assignment. And also, you need to the word count is 15 to 2,000 words. Make sure you are sticking to what the assessment criteria is asking you, okay? So the submission here is a 15-minute presentation, business case presentation with 5 minutes for questioning. The presentation should address the requirements of the activity clearly and must be submitted with full speaker notes. So when you go to notes at the bottom of your PowerPoints, you just add the speaker notes on there, okay?
Yes,
Do you know
yes.
how to do that?
Yes, I do.
Excellent, excellent. You're required to make effective use of PowerPoint headings, bullet points, and subsections as appropriate. All work must be supported and research referenced using the Harvard referencing system or an alternative system. The main system we use is Harvard system, so don't use any other system, okay? You need to also provide a bibliography at the end of the presentation. An inaccurate use of referencing may lead to issues of plagiarism if not applied correctly, okay? So the recommended word limit is 15 to 2,000 words, including speaker notes, although you will not be penalized for going under or exceeding the total word limit. Okay? The Harvard referencing of system as level 4, you are expected to use academic sources, and after this is why you're undertaking, avoid using things like Wikipedia and Google in regards to academic sources. They're not credible sources. Wikipedia you can add on to, so it's not a credible source. Make sure you cite everything, okay? And towards the end, there's something called Neil Toolbox that will help you reference everything. So articles can be downloaded from web and are perfectly acceptable sources of information. For example, if you're using anything from home office websites or government websites, you can download them and use them, and then you would reference them, okay? So they are credible sources. You need to move away from using uncredible sources, okay? So learning outcomes 3 and 4. So evaluate how a global market influences an organization structure, culture, and functions. And learning outcome 4 is develop a global strategy to support decision making for a given organization. Assignment brief and guidance. So the scenario is that you are a global strategy analyst working in the London office of one of the foremost global management consultancy organizations. You have successfully completed a thought leadership article for the next issue of Global Business Quarterly Journal, exploring the issues driving globalization and accompanying complexities faced by both national and international organizations. You have now been allocated a new project, okay? This involves working closely with other analysts to support the ongoing work for one of the company's large clients. The client in question has asked for help in developing a global strategy that will fully support organizational resource allocation and decision making. The international operations of the business have now been run loosely and the client feels efficiently. The client is aware of the importance of cultural awareness and differences and its link to effective leadership and organizational structure. So you will need to consider this carefully. So you have been asked to prepare and deliver a business case presentation to the client outlining a framework for global strategy. Having discussed this in detail with your fellow analysts and your senior partner, you agree that the business case will need to include the following. So number 1, so when you do your PowerPoint slides, Keith, make sure that you have this as number 1. Don't change anything, okay? So you must have 1 slide for each one, or maybe 2, whichever, however many you want, but you've got to make sure you don't change the heading, okay?
Okay.
So you need an appropriate introduction and the purpose of the business case, okay?
Okay.
Second one, you need an evaluation of different decision-making models available to client operating in a global environment. So the different decision-making models that you've used, you can look at them. Okay?
Yes.
Then number 3, you will look at a critical evaluation the influences of globalization on governance, leadership, and organizational structure, making use of McKinsey's 7S. So that's learning outcome 4, where we looked at McKinsey's 7. Is it learning outcome 4, I think? Let me just go through. It is the McKinsey's 7F. We've looked at learning outcome 3 and 4. You can look at in this, okay? Yeah,
Okay.
it's that's Cotter's. It's learning outcome 3 that you need to be looking at, okay?
Okay.
Where we look at the McKinsey 7S model of organizational structure. Then you've got to look at an evaluation of how ethical, sustainable, and culture factors influence the global operations of your client. And here you will be looking at also learning outcome 3, where we've looked at the culture of an organization, we've looked at ethics and functions, but also you need to be looking at learning outcome 4 as well, because it's mentioned there. So you would be looking at cultural sensitivity. That's on McKinsey's, the third one. And here you'd be looking at, let me just have a look. It looks at learning outcome 3. So you'd look here. Would you look at Hofstede's cultural dimensions here as well?
Okay.
Yes. So you'd look at the cultural factors which influence the global operation of your client, again in slides. Then the next one is suggested objectives and strategies developed to achieve the competitive advantage for your client and satisfy the needs of different stakeholders in the global market. Again, learning outcome 4 you would look at in regards to that. Okay, so suggested
Okay.
objectives can be looking at elements of, learning outcome 4, where they've looked at, different global strategies, benefits of the strategic decision making, And then the last one is valid and justified recommendation for how your client adapts its organizational structure and strategy to optimize responsiveness and decision making in a global market. And that, again, you're looking at elements of learning outcome 3 and 4 in that, okay? Mainly learning outcome 4, where you're looking at the element of responsiveness towards the end. You look at, let me just give you an example of learning outcome 4, where you've looked at the impact of responsiveness, integration and local responsiveness in learning outcome 4, but also there's some things that you could look at in learning outcome 3 on that. Okay, so these are the 6 parts you need to do in your PowerPoint slides, and it's 1,500 to 2,000 words. Okay, and again, you need your bibliography. Okay, referencing is really important. Have you got any questions around these activities and guidance, Keith?
Can I use that structure that you used in my PowerPoint?
For the slides?
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Oh,
You can use that stuff. It will help you, it will support
okay,
you,
okay.
and it will guide you, okay, on what you can use. Try to put your own stuff in as well. You know, maybe
Okay.
when you're looking at the McKinsey's 7S model, maybe do a
Mm-hmm.
diagram of it, you know, like they did, and then
Okay, okay.
explain it in, you know, in your notes and in your presentation. So, you know, it's quite clear.
Okay, okay.
Okay, and each one needs its own slide, but also don't change the wording of any of them. So there's 6 there, isn't there? There's 6 points that you need to consider. Have you got any questions on them?
No, no, no.
No? Okay, if you have any questions, just email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk, okay? Referencing, you need to be looking at reliable sources and make sure you reference using Harvard system of referencing.
Mm-hmm.
Assignment guidance and support. Okay, make sure you submit a basic introduction and a conclusion at the end. It doesn't have to be a huge one, but just conclude at the end to make sure. Make sure you use referencing. Here, I've got Neil's toolbox. You can right click on that. Have I shown you this before, Keith?
Yes, I think you showed me the first class slide
Neil's
you did.
toolbox?
Yes.
Yes, yes, we've done it a while ago, I think, and I showed you how to reference. And this one, you would reference books, articles, you would put your name, you would put the name, the author name, the date accessed, all the details, and it makes it for you, okay? So what you do
Okay.
is you just copy and paste that into the last slide of your bibliography, okay? Where you need a reference page, okay? So when you do your
Okay.
slides, you need a reference list at the end. You know, when I do the learning outcomes, each one has a reference list at the end. You need to provide that
Yes,
as well,
yes.
okay?
Okay, okay, no problem.
Okay. If you're using diagrams, please make sure you reference them accordingly and make sure you have a bibliography list and it's in alphabetical order at the end. Try using examples if you can. Do not change the wording of the assignment. So you've got 6 parts to it. Don't change the wording, please.
Okay.
Important, give proper headings, make your document look presentable and professional, and number your figures and tables and reference them. Follow the numbering on the presentation, ensure at least 12 to 15 references, and again, it should be Harvard referencing. Keep a check on your word count. Again, minus 20% tolerance in AI, so it should be below 20%. Your word limit is 1,500 to 2,000 words, and that's your notes as well. And remember, this is a grading pass or refer. Do not use AI software to write this assignment, although there's only a 20% tolerance allowed if you use it. Anything over 20% would be considered malpractice. And please
Mm.
mention, you know, the grade. Obviously, it's a pass or I think there is the pass or fail in that. Follow the numbering of the assignment. Any sort of useful tips again, read the tasks carefully, what it's asking you. Focus on the task and the command verbs. Make sure you are reading what they are asking you. Harvard referencing, again, author, date, style. If you are using, for example, Slack Brandon 2001 in text, and then at the end of it, the full reference. Again, make sure it's presentable. If you're using, read the plagiarism report as well, it's so important. Plenary, you need to make sure you're not copying and pasting your work. As we mentioned, it's plagiarism. Make sure you reference all your sources. Make sure you check your grammar and spelling, and refer to any ebooks or any sort of additional reading on Moodle that you can refer to. If you're using any of the slides, make sure you reference them. For example, MDT 2022, and then in the bibliography it'll say multidisciplinary teams learning outcome 1, slide number 2 to 10, UK Varsity, published on 15th of January 2023. Let me just, the assignment, you have 2 weeks to submit from now. Any questions, learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Let me just get you back to the assignment, so at least we've got an idea of...
Is it possible that you can send me the PowerPoints that one you are using to explain?
The PowerPoints are available on Moodle for you. Do you want me to forward them to you?
Yeah, if it's possible.
So I will do that. Just
Just send you my email.
you can just give me a minute. Let me just see if I can find the presentations. Excellent. So I'll forward them now. What's your email, Keith?
Let me send it to you through the chat.
Okay. So I can forward that on to you now, and then you've got access to them in regards to let's just have a look. Let me just see if I can open the assignment again for you, so you can just have a look at that. The assignment. Okay. Have you sent it, Keith? No?
Just a minute.
Okay, it's okay. So that's that. Let's just share this as well. Why is it not opening that? Okay, let me just see. Stop sharing. Right, okay, you'll just have to share this. Right,
Thank you.
just 1 minute, Keith. Copy. They are available on Moodle, everything for you, but I've sent you everything now, Keith. Have a look if you can, if you've got it. Okay, so let's have a look what's happening here. Just 1 minute.
I've received it.
You've received it?
Yeah, I've received it.
Excellent. So what I just want to show you now is just to share the slides with the assignment. This is how the assignment brief looks, okay? And it is available on Moodle. Can you see this? This is how it looks for you. Okay, so you can refer to this on Moodle as well. All your resources, all the recorded sessions, everything is available on Moodle for you. The assignment goes through an introduction, what you need to do, 15-minute presentation, the referencing, plagiarism, the journals, the resources that you could use, any sort of... For this assignment, you would be looking at learning outcome 3 and 4. Can you see it's clear there?
Yes.
So you need to cover each part of it, 6 parts, with learning outcome 3 and 4, and refer to the case study, okay? So make sure you are referring to that, but also make sure it is past merit and distinction. So make sure you are covering the learning assessment, making sure you are looking at the grading when you are doing it, and make sure you are looking at the indicative content. You have 10% flexibility as well. So if you go over the word count, you could do from 1800 to 2200 words, okay?
Okay.
So you have a little bit of flexibility when you do the word count in regards to that. But make sure, you are signing the declaration, not using AI as much, to do it, but you have 20% tolerance. Refer to the learning outcome and assessment criteria, but also this is the main thing here where you need to refer to for learning outcome 3 and 4 to cover each part of it with your notes to make sure, you have 10% flexibility, 15 to 2,000 words. Okay.
Okay.
So, have you got any questions before we finish the session? Make sure you are, referencing your work. Make sure you are, checking that, checking your
Okay.
grammar. Make sure the slides are professionally done nicely, have a nice background, make sure they're done nicely so that, you're able to present them a 15-minute presentation with answers, 5-minute questions. So make sure you know your area, what you've put in there. If you're putting diagrams in, make sure you reference them as well, okay? Check your grammar, check your referencing your sources, make sure that, everything looks presentable, and make sure you're not changing the wording of anything. If there were them 6 parts that it's asking you about, don't change any of the wording, okay? Make sure you also number your pages as well. It helps. And then again, have a reference list at the end, because you don't want to be saying that there's nothing that references. Now, if you're referencing a quote inside your slides, on your slides, make sure you put that in brackets and reference it in text as well, okay?
Okay.
Because you don't want to be done for plagiarism in regards to that, because that'll go through the software to detect any sort of plagiarism. Again, you have the 10% tolerism,
Okay.
10%, leeway in regards to word count. So make sure you stick
Mhm.
to that, and also try to use Neil's toolbox to help you take up your time. If you have less time, make sure you do it. So you've got, from now till from this session, you have 2 weeks to submit it. So shall I go back to the coordinator and tell her that you don't want the full sessions, you want 1 hour sessions for the next units?
Yeah, we can do classes for the next units.
For the next units, it's just this one, yeah?
Yes, I only have 2 left.
Excellent. Oh, that's really good, Keith.
Yeah,
You're nearly done then, aren't you?
yeah.
Yeah, you're nearly done, and then you'll finish it all
Yes,
off. So I'll tell them lot for the next 2 units that you've got, you would like
yes,
the one, no, not the one-to-one sessions, you would like a full session on each learning outcome separately, yeah?
yes, yes.
Okay. Have you got any other questions, Keith, before we finish?
Uh, I have one.
Yeah.
So in this assignment, there's no learning outcome 1 and 2.
No, this covers learning outcome 3 and 4. Can you see that?
Yes, I've seen that. Yes.
Yeah. But if there's anything that you think you want to put in from there that identifies and answers them, you can.
Uh,
But it's mainly
okay.
covering learning outcome 3 and 4.
Okay. I don't need, so there's no Word document I should submit, just the word power, just the PowerPoint.
Just PowerPoint. It says here, if you go to here, it says in
Oh,
your submission, it says that you must, submission is a form of a 15-minute business case presentation with 5 minutes for questions. The presentation should address the requirements, and you are required to make full use of PowerPoint headings, bullet points, and subsections, and all work must be supported by research and reference with Harvard referencing, include a bibliography. And so it's a presentation, but you include
hmm?
speaker notes, okay?
Okay.
Your notes need to be on the bottom of your presentation, and they need to be the ones that are 1,500 to 2,000. So that's the
Uh,
only thing you're doing, a 15-minute presentation.
okay, no problem, no
But your
problem. That's fine.
speaker notes need to amount to 2,000 words, okay?
Okay, okay.
Or any words on there. It all is recommended, okay?
Okay, okay.
Excellent. Have you got any other questions?
No questions.
Excellent.
No,
Nice
good,
to
right?
see you. Nice to talk to you, Keith, and good luck with getting on with the assignment. If you have any questions or any queries or anything, just email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk, okay?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It was lovely teaching you. See you later. Take
Have a
care.
nice day.
Bye.
Bye.